Congressman Emmer, Majority Whip of the United States House of Representatives, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real honor to sit down for this digital fireside chat with you, as you know, ahead of the upcoming Digital Asset Compliance and Market Integrity Summit in New York. We know it's an extremely busy time in Congress, so really thank you for finding the time. And more than that, thank you for your continuous engagement with the industry.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you today.
Pleasure is all mine. So maybe we can start with this engagement and ask you a little bit of the background for your interest and focus on this space. Crypto has been becoming more center stage in national politics. It's a big item in this presidential and broader election. And many more people are talking about this than was the case a few months ago even. But it really is important for me to emphasize that you have been engaging with the space with many of us for years now, from before it was fashionable and the talk of the town. I'm curious to ask you, I'll mention that Politico actually called you crypto's leading advocate on the Hill. So I want to ask you, where is your interest and engagement in the space come? What's driving you to push constructive legislation for this?
Well, in order to give you that, I got to put it in context. So I grew up my formative years watching as the debate was between the Keynesians and the Ron Paulites, the audit the Fed people. Ever since we went off the gold standard in this country, there has been a healthy amount of cynicism and skepticism that has developed about how we manage our monetary system. That morphed into, in this century now, it has morphed into not even the Keynesians. They call themselves the modern monetary theorists. Bottom line is a country that controls its own fiat currency can print and spend as much money as it wants, as long as it stays within some formula that there'll never be any negative consequences. That's how we got in this problem in the first place. This interest that I have started in 2000, probably 15, when I first took office. I had a staffer. These young kids, they're all gamers. They like to do the online games, which I never knew. I mean, we went out and hunted and fished, and these guys are doing it virtually, right? So he was one of those, and he gave me a book, The Age of Cryptocurrency, and I read it, and I went, oh my goodness, this fits everything that I used to argue about decentralizing the central government, restoring authority back to the ground where it originated, and giving people the right to self-determine and make their own decisions. And then as Congress went on, I got interested in it. It's now morphed into something even bigger. This is the next iteration of the internet. I mean, crypto is facilitating that next iteration, which is a world where we don't necessarily need an intermediary in every deal that we do, which is scaring the daylights out of the central control, top-down Politburo type governing that some of our bureaucrats and, frankly, some of our elected officials want to continue to control everything. They want to be able to tell you what you can and can't do, where you can do it, when you can do it, who you can do it with. That's why I've just become even more passionate about this area. Yes, crypto, very important, and it is an interest of mine, has been for years. We've got to create an environment where innovators and entrepreneurs do it right here in this country. That's going to be the key to growing our economy, but it's also about giving people back the right to self-determine, the right to make their own decisions.
Thank you so much. And I listen to you a lot, and I know that there's a lot of, ideology and passion around your support for the industry. So thank you. And it all makes a lot of sense. And I guess if we take that step forward, DACOM's audience is risk, compliance, legal, regulatory professionals. We're all watching the incredible amount of activity going on Capitol Hill right now, and I'm trying to make sense of it, to understand how their organizations should strategize. What should they be planning and expecting from DC, from Capitol Hill, this year, next year? You, as both whip, a majority whip, and a member of the Financial Services Committee, is very central to this effort, have been for years. I know you just yesterday, I believe you sent another letter criticizing the SEC's approach. You're involved in multiple bills, either as the initiator or supporting them. Can you help us make sense? What should the folks listening be focusing on and expecting?
Well, it's a great example. Without getting into the details of the letter, it wasn't as much criticizing them as demanding answers to the questions that we'd asked on a certain issue weeks ago. This comes down to unelected bureaucrats making laws in this country, and in this industry, it's regulation by enforcement. I don't have an issue with the regulatory part of our state, right? I do think we at Congress have done a disservice to the administrative state and the regulators in particular by not making clear what is what's cash, what's a commodity, what's a security. No, the Howey test is full employment for lawyers. We can do this, but Congress has to lead, and I think we've started to do that, especially in the House under Patrick McHenry's leadership. We passed a market structure bill. There's a stablecoin legislation that's out there. These things are teed up and ready to go. We had an anti-CBDC bill, right? Central bank digital currency. Again, no problem with regulators, but I don't think it's fair to our regulators when each one of them overlaps the other one because they don't know what it is. And then you get a guy like Gary Gensler who declares everything's a security because therefore it's under his jurisdiction. That's not right. And more, it's not right for the regulators, and it's not right for the people and the businesses that those regulators are working with because they all need certainty. They need clarity so that they can all do their jobs and we can grow these great opportunities in this country.
Thank you. And you know what? If I try to be even more specific, I believe a couple of weeks ago, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was quoted saying that he believes it's possible to pass legislation regarding crypto to give some of those answers this year. You've been working on it for a while. I'll ask directly, do you think it's possible to get legislation in place this year?
Well, not to frustrate you, but anything is possible. At the end of the year, the sausage is being made, anything's possible. When it comes to Leader Schumer's statements, I wish I could trust that. I mean, he's given me indications that he may be sincere when, for instance, he joins with a handful of Democrats and Republicans voting against SOP 121, right, to get rid of it. The White House ultimately kept it, rejected our CRA. Okay. That's a good step, but the problem you still have out of control people like Gary Gensler and the bureaucracy, and you still have Elizabeth Warren and her acolytes in the Senate. She's declared herself as an anti-crypto army of one, right? It's a very potent issue, though, for this election, and I think once we see what happens after the dust settles following November 5th, and we know who's going to be running the White House, who's going to be running the Senate, who's going to be running the House, I think as that dust settles, to answer your question finally, anything's possible. At that point, some of us are going to be advocating that this time has come. We need to put in place, for instance, the market structure bill, which, by the way, the Senate has their own ideas, and I respect that. But our products have been fully vetted through the committee process. They've been worked with through the stakeholders. These are complete products that are ready to go on day one. And it would provide a lot of clarity to these different regulatory agencies as to what they're responsible for and what falls within their jurisdiction, which gives all the people that you're talking about the certainty and the clarity that they so desperately need.
So, you said it might frustrate me. Your answer actually inspires me. Everything is possible, and it's possible to get legislation through in 2024. And I guess that might be a good segue to the question of bipartisanship. Within the context of the frustration you're describing, and it's very real. We work with, firms that invest millions and millions in doing their best to be compliant, and oftentimes they get enforced against first. It's very frustrating for the industry. In this context, there are many who feel that crypto has become a partisan issue over the last year. However, there are also many, including myself, who believe in this increasingly popular hashtag, crypto is purple. That it's too important for the future of finance, for more financial inclusion, for America's leadership to make it a partisan issue. I guess I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you feel about the way this issue has developed from a political standpoint, the politics around it, and how would you suggest that, again, our audience, the people in the room, can engage most constructively and help this become a bipartisan effort that brings results?
Well, I think it's still nonpartisan. I don't even use the word bipartisan, because when you say bipartisan, you've already divided the room.
Thank you for correcting me on that.
Well, no, it's just my I've been going at this for a while, and it always is us and them instead of we. Last time I checked, money was not Republican, money was not Democrat. Money is for everyone, right? And unfortunately, we have people who like to write stories. We have people who like to sow division. That they try to turn this into a partisan issue, which I'll address. They haven't been successful, in my opinion. They've tried to turn, 4 out of 4 people in this country need to eat. They've actually taken a agriculture committee and done the same thing, trying to make that a partisan issue when it's the last thing that should be a partisan issue. On this one, I think the reason you're hearing that and people want to seize on that is because it's very clear that at least from the top of the ticket down, one side has made it very clear we're going to be pro-crypto. We're going to absolutely lean in. Now, by the way, in all fairness, they weren't friends when they were in office last time. They had a couple of great people, others too, but 2 that come to mind are Brian Brooks and Hester Peirce. These people were advocating and doing hard work within the administration, but they weren't having their voices acknowledged the way they needed to be acknowledged. Well, guess what? That candidate has come all the way through and is now saying, I'll be your crypto president if you elect me. And you saw yesterday, maybe, he went into the Bitcoin bar in New York, and it literally is the first president to ever have transacted in Bitcoin. So I think that's pretty sincere. He's been making this clear for months. And you see on the other side, they recognize how potent this issue is politically. And it's not because it's about Republicans and Democrats. I will argue to you and anybody watching this, it's because the age group 18 to 40, this is where they grew up in the internet. My age group, we did not. I had a newspaper that I felt between my fingers. I had books. I punched a radio in my car. If you're invested or involved in this area and you're in my generation or close, I'm going to argue that you're doing it to make money. If you're one of these young people, 18 to 40, that has grown up in the internet and you are involved in this, you're doing it because you believe in your heart, for the most part, that you are helping to make the world a better place. You're trying to improve the world in general. What's happened to that group, I'm going to argue, is they see people like me talking about, hey, we really got to restrict this, and we got to keep people from harming themselves with bad decisions, and we got to do, and they've had enough. Those young people, and I mean they are young to me, 18 even to 40, they look at it as it's their decision. It's their life. They want to be empowered to transact with each other, peer-to-peer. They want a decentralized internet. It's really a powerful thing. And you see on the other side, they recognize it. It's not because it's Republican or Democrat. It's because this crosses over all the entire political spectrum. And you see the White House within the last month or two, when Kamala Harris was elevated to the top of the ticket, they tried to do outreach to the stakeholders across the country that we are going to be pro-crypto. Well, you haven't gotten rid of Gary Gensler. You haven't dealt with Elizabeth Warren and her followers. I just think that's not credible yet. But I think the good news for all of us that are on the nonpartisan side of this, one side seems to be moving ahead quickly. I can tell you on the ground with representatives and Democrat senators, they are moving forward with us. It's both of us. You're just seeing the top of the ticket, that one is pro and one is kind of yes and no, hot and cold. So people think that makes it a partisan issue. Believe me, in my heart, it does not. Nonpartisan.
Thank you. And I think you can't stress enough how much this depends as much on Congress as it does on the presidential results. And it's actually really, really exciting to hear it from you. We're getting close towards the end of our time. I do want to try and go a layer deeper and talk a little bit about the challenges. We're big believers at Solidus, to quote the late Supreme Court Justice Brandeis, that sunlight is the best disinfectant. We understand we're the new kid on the block. We have a lot to prove, and we also acknowledge that there are a lot of issues when it comes to market abuse, market manipulation, that the industry is constantly working to resolve. You can't solve the issues if you don't, acknowledge them. I guess I wanted to ask you, what are some of your concerns when you look at the industry? What are things you think the industry needs to resolve and can work on simultaneously with the congressional effort in DC? How much do you think manipulation and abuse is going to be included in legislation versus dealt by regulators? The challenges, I guess, is the core of this question.
Well, let me just start off with, I told you earlier, I'm not opposed to our regulatory state. I mean, regulations, if they're done right, they're focused and they're minimal, right, to the extent they can be, are the best regulations going. And we should, as we learn issues, which we have a history of doing, we can deal with them. In the meantime, you got to let people take risks. You got to let people get in the game and try to create the next great thing. By the way, some of those people are not going to succeed. Some of them might actually fail. That's not a bad thing. What's a bad thing that we got to watch is the fraud. We got to watch the, like you said, market manipulation. You got to watch, illicit activity that's on this platform. But the argument that people make is completely hollow, that this is corrupt, this environment. We got bigger problems with cash. A suitcase of cash moves much easier than a digital asset when it comes out of a private wallet and starts to move wherever it's going. We can all see it because, going back to Brandeis, blockchain actually is open and transparent for anyone to look at and see the transactions. And it's, not to scare anybody, but on the internet, you can find out where it came from. I mean, the Colonial Pipeline hack a couple of years back, where they held it hostage for Bitcoin, I believe, you'd have to correct me, but I'm pretty sure they recovered every Bitcoin that was paid in that ransom because they were able to follow where it went. So, look, is there a place for regulation? Yes, there is. I've been arguing this now for 8 years. It should be light touch regulation. And I think it starts with coming up with congressional definitions of what constitutes cash, what constitutes a commodity, what is a security in this environment. We really have to change bring our financial services laws into the 21st century. I mean, you're trying to shoehorn digital assets into a couple of acts that were originally drafted in the 1930s in response to a different problem. We got to start getting our mindset into the 21st century. And that's why I say it's Congress's responsibility. We're the ones who have been failing. People have been catching up quickly over the last 8 years. But take you back, when I started as a member of the Blockchain Caucus, do you realize who started the Blockchain Caucus? Mick Mulvaney from South Carolina and Jared Pullis from Colorado. They could not be more different human beings. One a Democrat, one a Republican. This is not a partisan issue, and we've got to do a better job now in Congress. Sam Bankman, I was asked a question earlier today. Well, you said we need him in this country. Yes, we do. If he would have been in this country, we would have had supervision on him. We would have been able to see this. Instead, because of the lack of clarity and certainty that you were talking about earlier, people like that set up shop outside of the country and outside of our oversight reach. So it's, I think the future is going to involve light touch regulation. I think you got to have a lot of the quote unquote sandbox. Hate the term, makes it sound like it's a child adventure, but this is a place where you can go create, and we got to have safe harbors so people can't come in and get hammered for taxes years down the road. And as we see these things develop and it becomes clear, we've got an issue over here, we can expand the regulatory environment. If it becomes clear that we need to open it up, we can do that too. And If someone starts abusing the system, then you come in and say, all right, this is how we fix it. And by the way, you can't rely on the elected officials necessarily here in Washington. We need you and everybody like you to be educating us, because you're the ones that are rooting this stuff out. You are the ones that are seeing it. You're the ones that know how it's happening. So when you see problems, you got to share them with us so that we can address them.
Thank you so much. And just to second your point about the fact that I actually believe law enforcement by now understands that the blockchain is a tool and that can be very helpful to them to catch bad folks. In fact, I believe about a year and a half ago, the largest recovery of funds in the history of the DOJ in the Bitfinex case was, to quote the judge, thanks to the blockchain. My next question was to ask you to share a little bit of your vision. I think you did that incredibly in a way that definitely inspires me to continue. But I do want to finish this conversation by asking you an open question. Anything else, any other message that you'd like to leave our audience with? I think your message about continue is loud and clear. Anything else you'd like us to know that we can do to help continually pushing this as a non-partisan issue and help and support your incredible work?
Yeah, that's the key. Don't take a partisan stance. Don't take the partisan bait, right? I mean, I can be partisan on issues that I believe in when it comes to economic issues, when it comes to the border and all this stuff. That's not what this is all about. Please resist any attempt by my side or the other side to start saying, oh, this is a divide, and start to pit us against each other. We are all on the same team, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, or whatever flavor of political persuasion you want. And then the last message would be this. I think we're 46 days out from a very major election. We all have differences of opinions. We're all going to exercise our right and make our vote based on what we believe. Let's make sure that when this is over, we remember we're still family. We're still friends. We're still neighbors. We're still co-workers. We basically want the same things, and we got to make sure that we start getting back together despite our differences. And then I'll just give you my guiding light. 18 months from now, we'll be talking about what comes next.
Congressman Emmer, a Majority Whip of the United States House of Representatives, thank you for leaving us with such an optimistic and just critical sentiment of the fact that we're all in this together at the end of the day, politics aside. And thank you again for finding the time to join us today on behalf of the community of the Digital Asset Compliance and Market Integrity Summit.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.